Needle turn applique, or as I call it, invisible applique, makes it so that you can take a piece of fabric and sew it down in an applique, but it looks like you sewed it into a hole of the same shape. Each one of these fish with their very intricate shapes would normally be hand sewn onto your fabric. But with the Satinedge foot, some invisible thread, and a 70-10 denim needle, we can stitch around and make it look like these fish were sewn into a hole that was a fish shape, and magically we were able to just sew it in there. To do this, you use a fusible interfacing, and you put your fusible side to your right side of your fabric, bring them together, stitch around the design a couple times using a really short stitch length, and then you cut a little slit in the fusible interfacing and turn it right side out. All right, so here we go. I've got my freshly ironed dog design and the fusible side of a single-sided permanent fusible interfacing, and I'm going to just apply that down onto that. We're going to sew now. And I'm going to go all the way around this design using a really short stitch length. Not just once, but twice. So this is the Satinedge foot, and it comes packaged with adapters, little ankles that snap on, but you can also attach it to your sewing machine by just lowering it over the snap-on bar. So I'm using a straight stitch, and my stitch length is normal at 2.5 millimeters stitch length. I have my needle in the center needle position, lowering the needle and moving the guide over so that the needle, when the needle is lowered into the machine, that the guide on the foot, the little metal pin, is touching the right side of the needle. Instead of a 2.5 millimeter stitch length, I'm changing it or reducing it or increasing the number of stitches in between point A and point B. So if you have a sewing machine that does not have millimeters, instead you have stitch count, or it'll say how many stitches per inch, then you want to increase the number of stitches per inch, or those of you who have millimeters, you want to decrease the size of the distance the feed dogs pull with each stitch, which is stitch length. So it's going to take longer to get around this circumference of the dog, but it's also going to make it so hard to ever rip the stitches out, which may sound awful if you're a person that needs to know where your seam ripper is all the time. All right, stopping with the needle down. Now I've exceeded that line, so I'm going to back up by lifting the foot, and then I will lower the needle and continue around. What's really neat about this particular process is that you can do super detailed pieces. And this is a really sharp turn, so I'm going to go back again. I may even go shorter on my length. Let's go down to a 1.4 millimeter stitch length, which is about 30 stitches per inch. We can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that's about 25 stitches per inch. And lower the needle. And we're just going to inch our way around and lower the needle. You can have your machine set with needle down already, but it's very easy to go too far after you reach a point. And for me, I feel it's always better to just lower your needle as you go around yourself. Another reason to not have your machine stop with the needle down is that you're going to tend to go too far, or the needle stops and it's not where you want it to be. And now you have to do what to get the needle out of the fabric? It's down. Do you turn the hand wheel backwards? You're not supposed to, right? If you turn the hand wheel backwards, what happens? People do turn the handle backward and they're like, doesn't seem like anything happened. I'm not sure why they tell me I can't turn it backwards. I just did. And then there's this little lever that goes up and down in the front of your machine. That's your take-up lever. So sometimes you can get away with turning your hand wheel backward, but sometimes when you do that, the thread falls off the take-up lever. And then the next time you go to stitch, the thread just falls to the bottom of the fabric and you get a big knotted mess of thread on the bottom. So that's why it's better to just lower your needle yourself instead of having the machine automatically do it. You can also just lift the foot and spin, because before you begin, you lower your needle and you move the guide over. That means where the guide is where your needle is going to come down. So you're not having to guess, and you won't feel the need to lower the needle as much as you're sewing. Now I'm starting to get this fabric bunching, and that is telling me that I need to reduce the amount of pressure that the foot is applying as it's pushing down against the feed dogs feeding up and down. So I'm going to go into my sewing machine and adjust the foot pressure. That was at normal. So I'm going to take it down to like 2. One may be too light. So I'm taking it down to 2. I have 5 numbers I can choose from, which means I'm going to go below halfway of full pressure on the fabric. Now, why would you not want to go lighter on the pressure? Because if you go too light on the pressure, you can literally move the fabric in any direction that you like, and that can cause you to slide out sideways from where you're at. Not just have an easier time going front to back, but also be able to move left and right. So here we go. Now I'm just going to lift and turn instead of lowering the needle as I go, which really makes it nice around this curve. Remember, I'm not watching that needle, I'm watching the guide, lining up the guide on that line. I'm lowering it this time because I have like a 90-degree turn. Yay. Now I have gone back over where I already did that much, which is about a ½ inch. Cut your fabric. Trying to get as close as I can to that stitching line without cutting it. And I hold my fabric like that so it's taut. And then cut. Pulling that apart, making sure that I only cut the stabilizer and not the fabric. One little cut. You know it's really old when a paintbrush pushes through. All right. Now that dog is fused onto the fabric, and I'm able to go ahead and stitch around. The Satinedge foot has this little wire, and you set it off the side of the fabric. Select a zigzag stitch. Left swing on, right swing off, left swing on, right swing off. Lift and turn as needed. And we are whip stitching or hand sewing this applique onto the fabric without having to do it by hand. Now it's completely secured, and you can go ahead and you can cut the fabric from behind and stuff it with some fiberfill to make your dog a little poofy. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button and share with your friends. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I sure hope you'll do so today. And I wish you a doggone good summer.